Hello, everyone, and welcome to another lifting episode of Disclosure in the Media. I'm here with Ryan again, and we're doing the Fallout game series. So, Ryan, take it away. I know there's a lot here.
So yeah, Fallout, it's a role-playing game made by the same people that make the Elder Scrolls now. It wasn't originally, but they got the rights to it sometime in the early to mid 2000s. And they Fallout is a post-apocalyptic after a nuclear war game where you're thrown into this wasteland that erupted after a nuclear conflict between the United States and China. But to fully understand Fallout, we need to go back to the end of the Second World War. So the Fallout games open with the scene of the U.S. bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki in the end of the U.S. War with Japan that we remember now as the Second World War. But they talk about how like the atom held like the secret to power in this new world after the Second World War. And so while that's going on, you learn about resources diminishing around the world, sort of in the way they are now. Like we're running out of oil, we're running out of a lot of other crucial things for society, and we're also running out of like space and the climate crisis essentially. Um, but at the same time, U.S. culture really didn't evolve past the 50s. So the 50s, like music styles and stuff are still in Fallout, and music from like the period of the 50s and prior is still huge in Fallout. Like the few radio stations there are in the game, it's all that music. And then some like music made for the games that's based on music of that era. So the US culture isn't changing past the 50s. The same thing with the communist view, the view of the Cold War. So in the post Cold War era, the US and the USSR were still enemies. But what was noticeably different is Europe basically made the EU earlier, and the USSR imploded on itself around the same time, but didn't keep its European holdings. And that became like the Eastern Bloc countries. And they joined this post World War II EU like faction. Well, as time goes on, the USSR collapses, but that form of communism, the kind of communism the USSR has, never changed in China, and China continued this super communist state and kind of kept the USSR alive as a communist state, but just not like the chief communist power in the world the whole time. So we're getting into like the late period of escalations between the West, this European Union-esque group that's led by Britain and Germany, and the United States on one end, basically the NATO countries, and China and this broken USSR that's holding on because China's keeping them alive, that is in the communist group. Well, at some point, we run out of oil in about the 2050s. So Middle East runs out of oil. Basically, it said that Europe and the United States used them until they ran out of oil in like the 2030s, gave up on them. They fell into war, killed each other off. Same thing happens in Europe in the 2070s, sometime in the early 2070s. And this European Union breaks down. They go to war with each other. The US and China are monitoring the situation, but are not going to step in. And the dwindling resources has caused most of the world to stop alliances. So even the USSR that was being held up by China throughout most of this period after what would be the 1990s collapses because China stops giving them support. They add fuel to the fire in the European conflict, and basically Europe glasses itself. Sub-Saharan Africa is unknown, and Japan reverts to a samurai culture, but without the kind of support needed to like impress their will on the rest of the world. The areas like Australia are unknown. Most likely they continued being British held territories though. Like Britain would have never given up India in this timeline. We know that. And thus we don't know what happened to India and them. We know that the South America, we have no information. We have very little information about Mexico because Mexico gets controlled by the cartels fully at some point in like the 2040s and continues that way pretty much through the timeline. And now we get to the big two, US and China, who continue Cold War views of each other and their systems basically until the climax that ends in this war. But to go over that, so we have the world running out of resources. US and Canada are the last two that have any. The US just annexes Canada without a word. US annexes Canada, so the United States in the Fallout timeline about 2065 would have included all of what we know today as Canada. China runs out of oil, and China does not have the fusion technology the US does in the same capacity that the US does. So China invades the last place on the planet that has oil, Alaska, which is US territory, and that starts the Sino-American War. And what we have here is a propaganda picture that comes from one of the Fallout DLCs of what the conflict in Alaska was like. Well, the war dragged on in a stalemate fighting over Anchorage until the United States brings out T-45 power armor, a fusion pack powered mech suit essentially that basically turns one soldier into a tank. And they're usually equipped with like heavy weapons, energy weapons, so like laser weapons, plasma weapons, and or conventional heavy weapons like miniguns, that kind of sort of thing. Even shoulder-mounted mini nuclear launchers, which are a thing in this universe. They're called the Fat Man, and those won the United States this war, pushing the Chinese out of Alaska and then pushing them into what we know now as China. The US even took over parts of the Gobi Desert and what we consider Western China. At the same time, a peace treaty was begrudgingly signed by the Chinese, knowing that they could not keep out the power armor threat, as the US rolls out the second version of power armor that basically just is better power armor, T-51B, as well as the US was also building a bigger version of T-45 called T-60 at this point. And basically the Chinese realized they could not stop it if the Americans could give every man in the US Army power armor. They just couldn't stop that kind of fight, so they begrudgingly signed a peace treaty. And there was a very tenuous peace for about a year. So the end of the Sino-American War is sometime in 2076. And on October 23rd, 2077, China, unable to basically deal with the economic sanctions the U.S. puts on them, fires its nuclear arsenal at the United States. The United States fires back. Only a few places in the United States are spared. We know that the city of Buffalo, as well as Vegas, and that's pretty much all we know that was spared. And the only reason Buffalo was spared was because they had something to do with Niagara Falls that made them like a fortress. And Vegas was spared because of a man named Robert Edwin House, who was a very rich mogul who was able to make an anti-nuclear like EMP that went off when the nukes came so that they like wouldn't go off. And that was how we get into what is considered the wasteland. So here's just an average picture of a nuke going off in this universe. So just to give you the size, this would have happened in pretty much everywhere. It's unknown as to how many nukes actually went off, but we know that the area around Las Vegas had about 70 nukes shot at it, and House was able to block 50 of them before his failsafe stopped working. And basically that only protected the area right around Las Vegas. So if we take those numbers, every major US city had about at least 70 shot at it. Probably population centers like New York City, DC, Boston, Chicago, San Francisco, and LA likely all had hundreds shot at them. We know Chicago is blown pretty much off the map, and that has not been retconned by the developers yet. Probably will be at some point, but as of right now, that's what we know. And but that's not the worst thing that's not to say everyone died out. Rural populations didn't really get affected instantly. A lot of them didn't even know it happened until the news stopped coming and like their supermarkets stopped being stocked. But also 100 vaults were made, and the vaults were a government-funded private venture made by a group called the Vault-Tec Corporation. And these 100 vaults or so, we know now that there's more than 100, but like base numbers is said that there's probably about 100. So we think that there's more, about 250 of them. Each vault was stocked, supposedly made to protect 1,000 people from the bombs. This did not happen. The Vault-Tec Corporation didn't ever think that there would actually be a nuclear war, and what they wanted to do was allow their scientists to create social experiments and see how people react to different stimuli, whilst thinking that the nuclear war happened. So a lot of the vaults were equipped with like really messed up experiments, like one man and 1,000 women, or 999 women, or one woman and 999 men, or one man and a box of puppets in one case. Another one was a like greenhouse vault. So it was meant to be like the perfect farming community, but what they didn't say was that they also had like a brain eating spore inside of it that would like turn people into like crazy monsters that were controlled by like the plant. Just really messed up experiments. One where people were put in a simulated like computer program where one of the vault engineers was in charge of it, and basically he made himself like emperor of the world and did whatever he wanted and enslaved all the rest of the people. Really messed up scenarios like this. So most of these vaults were bad, but there were some called control vaults. We know that Vault 13, Vault 76, Vault 101, and a few others were basically control vaults with some very small tampering by the Vault-Tec Corporation. 76 was just a control vault. It was the first vault meant to market the rest of the vaults, so it was like the one good vault from what we know. We know that there were a couple other ones. There was one control vault on the West Coast, and all the vaults were supposed to have something called a GECK when you get to them. And a GECK is called a Garden of Eden creation kit. Basically, it was everything the people in the vaults would need to rebuild society after they came out of the vaults. And the vaults were timed to open after a certain amount of time. So the vaults were all meant to open like 20 years after the bombs fell, when the radiation levels went down enough where it was safe to come out. Most of them didn't. Most of them opened sometimes hundreds of years after. Vault 13, which is the vault from the first game, it refused to open until Vault-Tec's failsafe broke and their water supply wasn't being purified anymore, and they had to send somebody out to find a water chip, and your character is that person. So you're the vault dweller is what you become known, because you actually involve yourself in a conflict that occurs whilst trying to find this chip for your people. And what happens is it ends poorly for everyone, essentially. Basically, you're not allowed back inside the vault after you get the chip, and then you fight to stop a threat bigger than anything else the Wasteland has seen in that area. And you then go back to the vault, and they're like, this is what's going on in here. You're going to all die if you stay in here. And your character takes a group of people, and he starts a community somewhere north of where his vault was. We don't know anything else about what happened to the people inside until Fallout 2, and I will not ruin that yet. So Fallout leads into a map that kind of look about 200 years after the bombs fall. That's the map of the US, factionally at least. So the first game in the Fallout series chronologically is actually Fallout 76, and you come out of the vault of that 76 control vault, and you basically are in what is now West Virginia, building, trying to rebuild society. I actually have yet to play that game, but Chris has, and from what I know, it doesn't go well.
No, it doesn't. No.
There's a lot of radioactive monsters, as well as just infighting by the people that used to be in the vault. But eventually they do somehow rebuild society from what we gathered. But this is 200 years after. So what we do know is that the people of what is now California made the new California Republic. Caesar's Legion was created by a guy that originally came from the NCR within a faction within the NCR called the Followers of the Apocalypse, or kind of like a non-for-profit charity people that also like researches like medicine and stuff like that. He went east and found all these tribes that he saw as deplorable. And he knew about Julius Caesar and was like, Rome is cool. I'm going to make a new Roman Empire, and basically did that by assimilating every tribe in there and basically turning them into like post-apocalyptic Romans. And that's what Caesar's Legion is. And they're in the game where you meet them, they're at war with the NCR, and you get to decide the fate of that war in a multiple ending game. And you can play through it however you want. Tesla's army, we know, is a group of raiders. The raiders are kind of just like a gang of people that preys on everyone else in the wasteland that just took over pretty much the Pacific Northwest. The Alaskan Brotherhood of Steel. So the Brotherhood of Steel started out west in a place called Mariposa Military Base. And they were remnants of the U.S. military that learned of the kind of atrocities that the U.S. military was committing in the days before the bombs fell, and actually revolted right before the bombs fell. And what they thought that they were going to be like killed off by their leaders, what happened was the bombs fell before their leaders could do anything about it. And so they built this. They reached out to any U.S. military that was left after the bombs that they could get a hold of, and Brotherhood of Steel kind of started all over the country, but fell apart afterward. A lot of them died out. Mostly the West stayed strong, like the group that was actually the Brotherhood of Steel. We know that there was a group, but some of them eventually went north, started the Alaskan Brotherhood of Steel. Some went east, and settled in the area around the capital of the United States in Washington, D.C. And actually they live, their main base there is the Pentagon. Some also went to like this area, the Midwest. We don't know exactly what happened to them, but we believe that they were killed off by another faction we'll soon learn about. The Great Khans were a gang of drug dealers and just more organized raiders that originated in the Southwest, but fought with the new California Republic to the point where a lot of them moved on and they took over most of central Canada because there's no competition there when they moved in. This was about 100 years after the bombs fell. The Texan Republic is a bunch of Texans who, the stereotype of Texans is taken to like the top, and they basically tried to make Texas again after the war, but like independent Texas. The Dixie Wasteland is basically the Eastern Confederate states from the Civil War that came together and made basically a new Confederate States of America. But instead of human racial slavery, they imposed slavery on what were once humans, so mutated peoples. There are a few races of them that we might go into in later videos, but basically they enslaved those peoples, and that's how they act. The Penn Confederacy is basically Eastern Pennsylvania's societies coming together to try to just rebuild some sort of society. We know that Western Pennsylvania, there around Pittsburgh, became basically like a slave labor camp dedicated to making steel. We don't know anything about most of New York State except for Rochester has a gang of power armor wearing maniacs that fight each other all the time. And New York City is some kind of steampunk like metropolis in the wake after the war. And the area that is shown as yellow called the Commonwealth is not actually the Commonwealth now. This is an older map, but it's the best one to show off basically the borders. The Commonwealth is really the area around Boston and basically Massachusetts to southern Maine. It's basically New England. And the Commonwealth is controlled primarily by two factions, one called the Institute. The Institute is actually the remnants of MIT, their version of MIT. But even before the war, it was called the Commonwealth because the U.S. broke itself up into 13 Commonwealths, and they were Commonwealth One, was New England. So in the games, it's actually CIT, but it's basically MIT. And they build synthetic humans that are indistinguishable from real humans and insert them into society and stuff and try to control society that way. And the other faction is the Commonwealth Minutemen. They're based off of basically the militias that fought the Revolutionary War. And they're basically just militias that are trying to bring everyone together and expand and rebuild some form of society based off of early America.
Okay.
And then Mexico is still controlled by the cartels, from what we know.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting. For many years, people have actually been seeing, in channelings and everything, a timeline that's very similar to this, or timelines that were very similar to this. And even myself, I, over the past several months, especially this year, in countless people's sessions and myself, I've been actually seeing something similar to this, but where China was also involved for one, in one person's raid that they're based in China. I actually saw that the European Union actually bombs the crap out of them in 2023. Now, that's an alternate timeline that's been pretty much averted. And also saw that parts of the U.S., like in Wisconsin, for instance, I saw great floods that were happening there, and different cryptids and creatures actually starting to actually emerge. In that timeline, I know in this one there is a type of frog-like cryptid we spoke about in the Elder Scrolls shows that actually was put in place to actually cull society down. It did it in different points in the past. Well, there's several of them underground that they were just basically waiting for a disaster like this to happen, or a flood in some areas to happen, so people would try to go underground, and then they would just basically grab them. And that's what happened in old times. Some people would go down into the sewers to get away from some conflict, and these creatures would grab them. What happened then was the timelines were altered by the different changing energies, and also the fact that people wanted time to actually change. This is what Joanna and I have been emphasizing, is that this timeline is no more. This is why it's been put into the realm of fiction here, because of the fact that this is basically what they're trying to promote. Some false remote viewers that have been planted out there. You're talking about plants. They've been putting out there going some disastrous timeline, just like this, like a Mad Max type of scenario, in the very beginning, like in Fallout 76, for instance. And they've been trying to promote this type of timeline. I mean, also another thing that I came to find out is they insert certain things in video games like Fallout 76, for instance, where you have to basically survive. You basically have to find food and water in the game, which is really obnoxious. Actually, anybody that's played that one, it is quite annoying. You actually do starve and die of thirst in that game. It's very annoying. What they're trying to do is, somebody out there believes that there's some disaster that's going to take place from now, years from now, and they're trying to insert in games like certain basic survival type of scenarios, or possible virtual scenarios like this, where they can actually show people, hey, this is what's going to happen. You might want to prepare by doing this, build your shelter, do this. They're actually trying, some group out there is trying to show people, hey, this is how you survive. This is what you do in a scenario like this. And that's why there are games like this. Of course, they're fun to play, but that's what they're trying to insert, and they're fully believing that there was going to be some kind of disaster. Then the bad guys out there are trying to get people to co-create a disaster like this. So it's good that it's called an alternate timeline, just like post World War II, how it's split off like that. And there's actually a truth to that too, where there was an alternate timeline another universe or alternate timeline that's sprang from around the times of World War II. That's the time when the Draco and Orion forces began to assist the Nazis with their spaceships like the Nazi Bellcraft and the time travel technology and all this. So there was, around the times of World War II, there was an actual split. But people thought that the Americans actually won the Second World War, but it was actually the Nazis when they actually they went down to Argentina and Antarctica. And they began to then slowly later on infiltrate the U.S. through Operation Paperclip. And of course, they have occupation on Mars, the Moon, and Ceres colonies in space. But with going back to this before I get too sidetracked, this particular timeline, it's actually quite interesting. Also, you were saying about them making those artificial humans. And in some cases, there are these artificial people and or program people, as you've heard us talk about on several occasions, where they're reinserted back into society to actually cause problems. There are also artificial ones too that are also reinserted that are cybernetic as well. And so that's interesting that they added that particular part to this, and the fact that they're actually hypothesizing this is how it would work out. What they do is there's a group in the military and in the cabal. Basically, is what they do is they calculate what possible timelines are and where they could possibly win, lose, and this is where some of the time travel programs come into play as well. Where certain scenarios, if they alter one thing, all the possible scenarios that would come out. And they calculate this down to the finite decimal point, and they think, oh, this is how it's going to turn out. But with the energies the way they are, it shifts and changes so rapidly they can't completely calculate all of it, especially with the Mandela effect, that some parts of it that have come to a close by this time. There's also in play a group in the distant future that some insiders call Time Corps. And they have calculated, sending people back in time to actually mold the timeline in a certain way to actually, in some cases, avoid things like this. And there's another part of the group that actually helps decimate and insert certain sicknesses in society and certain actual propaganda into society that actually assist people in the past. They accurately depicted that group, or at least mostly accurately, in the brand new movie Tenet, it was actually called. They actually accurately depicted them to a certain extent in that movie. But the way this is actually also out, we haven't gotten to this yet, but there's also a vault in Fallout 76 called Vault 79, which is actually the gold cache of the United States. All the gold in the United States is stored there. But the way they disguise this vault and the way to disguise all of these bases is actually interesting because it's actually accurate. Where people always try to put bases in certain spots under the United States. Oh, this one's bigger. This one's bigger. Oh, this one is a huge one here. They're all one solid network that have multiple openings across the United States, either through cave openings or in normal cities. Now, Vault 79 had its opening underneath basically a tourist stop, is what it was in the Vault 76. There's also openings to this very same set of bases throughout. There's like sheds you can go into that have openings to the insides of these bases. There's insides of houses, all of this. And even going into Vault 79, they even make reference to the Underground Railroad system, basically going, oh, this looks like they hauled supplies in and out this way. It was just a vague reference. And you see this railroad going through the underside. Well, also in the quest to actually take Vault 79, you take control of a giant auger drilling machine, and you actually are able to get to the vault that way. Well, these auger machines are actually used to actually drill these holes throughout the underside of the United States. You actually have constructed these bases to actually begin with. But this is the timeline that the Cabal actually wants right here, where there's it's basically tribal warfare on the surface. It's basically Walking Dead without the zombies. All of these creatures in it, we'll get to in a little bit, or again, a little bit. These is actually how these corporations want it. They're actually running experiments like that. Mixed creatures, mixed cryptids, mixed all sorts of different creatures that sometimes wash up on the beach, or sometimes they escape from a lab and people see them. And this comes up, like I saw a picture of a creature that was like part cat, part some kind of rodent or something like that that washed up on a beach. So a lot of this that they depict in the game series is actually happening. So you can continue, Ryan. Go ahead.
Before I continue fully, actually, one of the biggest showings of these synthetic peoples in the game is in Fallout 4. There's a scenario where you learn through a certain quest line that the largest settlement in that part of the wasteland, Diamond City, which is actually made in like the Boston Red Sox arena, was run by a synth version that was a replacement of the old mayor. And you actually meet the old mayor's biological brother, who's the mayor of another settlement, who even says at a certain point he started acting completely different and became a real jackass, is what he said. And you come to find out that at that point was when he was actually abducted, killed, and swapped in for a synthetic human. And you get to decide if you want to help this synthetic mayor hold his office, or like hide the fact that he's a robot, or let the people do what they will with him.
That's actually interesting. Yeah, they actually do replace different leaders in a very similar way like that. And at times they do a mix between cloning and cybernetic components, and they have a facsimile of a person or a different person in the original person's body as well. They can do body transferring like that. And when you see somebody change really drastically like that, and I've encountered this multiple times in my life where somebody's changed really drastically, it's not always possession or oppression. They're actually a very different person that has a very different energetic signet within their energetic core. They're very, very different. Even Joanna ran into somebody once back in North Carolina that was like that, where this person returned from a vacation and they were totally different. And this actual thing that they depict does take place. I've even heard reports from clients and other people that have written me that actually their own family member has come home and they're totally and completely different, and they've been completely co-opted like that. They're either dead or they've been captured and placed somewhere, and their soul has been removed and another being has been put in there. I've seen all manner of different manipulation in that way, where sometimes a reptilian consciousness is placed in there. I've seen all sorts of it. Also, the good guys sometimes will use this technique too to try to grab a already corrupted politician or already corrupted leader somewhere, or somebody that's just being a pain in the ass in society, and they'll flip it around. Well, they'll add their own person in there. But some of the good guys tend to use more holography and things of that nature. But I've actually seen leaders actually replaced. I've actually seen everyday people replaced in the very same way. Like if they were testing out this particular technique, they test it out in a neighborhood first with just a person, just to see if they could get the personality facsimiles almost correct. I mean, it's not going to be 100%. They'd probably study the person for a while and then they'd end up replacing. That's the same as doppelganger and changeling type of mythology as well, where you have these myths of babies being stolen from cribs and actually being replaced with a changeling, a different facsimile. I call those people inborns, where they were replaced, or tampered with pre-birth and then put in place into society. So it's along those similar lines.
All right. Well, now we'll get into some of the factions that we know about that are the most major factions from this map, at least. So the first one's the Brotherhood of Steel. That's their logo, the sword with wings and cogs. They started off as this post-nuclear military faction, and quickly came to the realization that the world is in this situation because of technology run amok. And thus, they're the only ones who have the moral power to control technology. So what they tend to do is they will scour the wasteland for pieces of pre-war tech or high tech, like high technological things, and will hoard them. And it is very rare that they'll take new members in. Usually you're born into it, or you have to show like extreme dedication and like aptitude to join them. They're broken up into like 3 different groups: the scribes, which are their R&D and like repairs of the technology group; the knights, which kind of are low-level foot soldiers as well as logistics; and then the paladins. The paladins are the ones that get the power armor, the heavy weapons. Basically, they're the power armored guys of the U.S. military before. The Brotherhood of Steel is one of the few factions that has power armor in Fallout after the bombs fall, and they're also one of the few factions that can teach you to wear it. In a lot of the earlier games, you can't actually even wear power armor until you learn how to use it, because power armor is actually a powered armor. You have to use fusion cores, which are like a big fusion battery to power it, and presumably that's what they're teaching you. In the later games, you just have to find a fusion core and put it in, and you can use the armor. The way that they explain that in Fallout 4 is you are actually someone from before the war that was cryo-froze, and you were in the military, so you know how to use power armor. And in Fallout 76, I assume it was just something that they didn't want to change. I don't know what the lore reason for that one, why you can use power armor off like the beginning is for that one.
It's basically when you find them in different places where they were either experimenting on new forms of them, or you just find where somebody has just stored components for them or something like that. That's how they justified it. I guess they just wanted people to be able to use it, even though it seemed out of time sync a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. The Brotherhood of Steel at some point sent a group west because they knew that the capital of the United States had some of the greatest tech in the world, and they wanted to keep that safe. And they found the Pentagon in the bottom. They took over the Pentagon because head of the U.S. military must have some cool stuff. Underneath, they found a robot called Liberty Prime, a propaganda spouting, football nuke throwing, like 30-foot tall robot that talks about how if you're communist, you must die, better dead than red, talking about how its main directive is the destruction of China and communism. It is quite a funny thing. It has like a death laser that can shoot out of its eyes. It's crazy. And they actually utilize it to take out some of the bigger enemies they face, and rightly so, because some of these enemies are bad. But at some point, this eastern faction of the Brotherhood of Steel diverted more into like the people's saviors. And instead of only hoarding technology, they started letting more people in. Like pretty much anyone that had any sign of aptitude, they let in, taught how to use power armor, and basically protected the community. And out west, the Western Brotherhood cut them off for it. Well, after a certain amount of time, a new leader of the Eastern faction in DC came about and kind of reverted back to this more militant, but still took people from the outside in, but reverted back to the idea of we need to keep technology safe, and less of like, we're here to help you. So if a group wasn't willing to join them or surrender their tech, they would wipe them off the map. After Elder Maxon took over the Eastern Brotherhood of Steel, and Elder Maxon was actually, his name is, I forgot his first name, but basically he's the super far down descendant of the guy that started the Brotherhood of Steel, Roger Maxon, on the West Coast, and he basically takes over by blood right. Essentially, he's like, I am a Maxon, I should be in charge, and he then leads the Brotherhood of the West against the Commonwealth Institute of Technology, the Institute, because he sees synths as an abomination, an aberration of technology gone amok is actually, I think, what he actually says. And since the ones that aren't directly controlled by the Institute have free will, some of them escaped and like have integrated into technology, and the ones that, and they usually don't even know their synths because they got help and their like computer was wiped, so they don't even know that they're not even a real person. He wants to destroy those ones too, and a lot of them are doing good work. So he's kind of a morally gray character. He wants to do good because the Institute's evil, but he also wants to destroy every last synth because they're an example of technology run amok and they can't be controlled in his eyes. So he's a morally gray character. But like the Brotherhood of Steel is also at war with the New California Republic on the West Coast and have fared quite poorly. But we believe that that's going to turn around soon in the later games, because it seems like the Eastern Brotherhood is going to send support to them now that the Eastern Brotherhood has an air fleet. So the next is fittingly the New California Republic, and the New California Republic was started indirectly by the Vault Dweller because he saved the guy who started the New California Republic and his daughter, who became the longest reigning president of the New California Republic. Basically, the New California Republic is the California government continued two-headed bear because like irradiation changes things. So let's just take the same old flag, put new in front of it, and make a bear with two heads. That is not actually an animal you can find in the wasteland. Unfortunately, there is a bear. It's called a yaoguai. It's just kind of like a black bear that's been irradiated. But yeah, so the New California Republic, the only reason I'm showing them is because they control most of the West Coast in California and Southern Oregon. And parts of Nevada, as well as Baja California. They control all of that, and they're actually, in most people's eyes, the best chance to have the pre-war United States government return that's not controlled by the same people as before. Basically, them and the Commonwealth Minutemen are the two best factions to rebuild the United States in most people's eyes. But the New California Republic has also done some shady things, just like any government does. They've used agents to try to infiltrate larger communities to get them to join the Republic. Sort of like there's a city called Vault City that actually had one of those Gex, the Garden of Eden creation kits, and they used it to make a very prosperous community. They had to use the main character of Fallout 2 to sort of blackmail the city into joining them. As well as just, they're very militant, and they kind of resemble like, their uniform for their military is a lot like the World War II, like Africa campaign style, like uniform, like the Expeditionary Force uniform. And the main weapon that their forces utilize is a like early form of the AR-15. That's like how they're depicted. They also have elite troops called the New California Republic Rangers, the NCR Rangers, which are like, they're based on like Old West Rangers with like better tech, as well as like the best weapons that you can get in that area. And they are like law keepers inside the New California Republic. They're like the main sheriffs. As well as the fact that they will, like, one of them can take out like a 40-person raider gang by themselves. They're like the New California Republic's enforcers. Like if the Rangers are brought in to fight a war, the New California Republic is desperate to win it. And so then the final of these main factions is the Enclave. The Enclave has been at war with both the Brotherhood of Steel, the New California Republic, and pretty much any other faction that comes about in the Wasteland. And what is the Enclave, you might ask? Well, the Enclave is the remnants of the United States government that fled to a couple bases, as well as an offshore oil rig, and some of the Caribbean islands after the bombs fell. And they're basically corporation leaders, the U.S. president, and high-up politicians from the pre-war periods, great-great-great-great-grandnephews. Basically, the cabal like continued. They found a way to keep themselves alive, even through this, which the real cabal would too. And they still make new things. Like they made this power armor that's on screen after the war. Well, there's prototypes of it from before the war, but like they mass produced it after the war. At one point, they're the only faction that has a vertibird fleet, which are like helicopters. And they conduct experiments on people to try to make super soldiers for them to take over, to basically kill off everybody else in the wasteland so they can retake over America and rebuild their view of America. They're very inbred at this point, like not to the point where there's enough of them where like defects haven't formed in most of them, but it's like the same genes recycled over and over again for 200 years. And the basically the New California Republic and the Brotherhood of Steel, before their conflicts, teamed up to fight off the Enclave, because the Enclave was basically abducted anyone that stayed in Vault 13. I said how I'd come back to that later. When the Vault Dweller came back and took a group of that people away, a group elected to stay, while the Enclave took them and turned them into warriors for them by forcing them into becoming a whole like test subjects of genetic experiments, and replaced them with a group of sentient Deathclaws. Now, Deathclaws are a creature we will definitely go over in a later video, and they're basically a Jackson's chameleon that's been forcibly evolved into a dinosaur, essentially. And these ones were intelligent and could talk and stuff, and they could even make alliances, and they did. Well, the Enclave does things like this. When the Enclave wanted to just like wipe out everyone in the Capital Wasteland, what they did was they tried to put a virus in the water supply. And anyone who had any radiation in their like genetic makeup would die from the virus. So basically the only people that were safe were people from the vaults that had yet to open and the Enclave themselves. Anyone else to drink the water would die. The events of Fallout 3 let you decide if you want to aid the Enclave or not. Canon ending is you did not aid the Enclave and you helped destroy them. You helped the Brotherhood of Steel destroy that part of the Enclave. And then the Brotherhood of Steel in the East got what the Enclave had resource-wise. So like their vertibirds and some of their other high-end technology and power armor. Basically, the Enclave is like the boogeyman of Fallout. Every time you think that you've destroyed them, they come back. And there's enough of them spread all over the planet, not the planet, but like at least the Western Hemisphere, that they will continue to probably be a threat in the later games. Even this map, which I didn't fully know, has the Northern Enclave holding territory, which I didn't even know about, because there's only one game that's been in this area, and it's like really hard to get a hold of nowadays. And I didn't get to play it, and the lore from it's shaky at best. And so I guess the Enclave controls this area of the territory, but this version of the Enclave seems like an Enclave that's embraced the U.S. as it is now, from what the lore talks about, not trying to rebuild the U.S. as it was.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's the end of like the major factions that you hear about in these games. There's other ones, but like I said, the Caesar's Legion is the only other big faction, and I explain them basically to the best of my ability. They're basically a guy who thought he could remake Rome and did quite a good job until he dies, and then it falls apart. And then you get to choose if he dies. Well, he dies either way, but you get to choose if like you aid his faction, which means they fall apart slower, or if you don't, they fall apart a lot quicker. We do have some other little tidbits that we can get into about Fallout, and so there are aliens in this universe. These are them. They're like a gray, but they're green. They're called the Zetans, and I know that there's a version of Zeta Grays. Really, they're only in the game. They're in the game twice, basically. There's DLC where you go on to you get abducted by them, which you do. But you do get off of it, and you actually go on a mothership that's been like orbiting the Earth for like thousands of over 1,000 years. And there's actually other abductees from different time periods on the ship that you get to free from like their abduction prison, but they're in like cryosleep. And so there's like a samurai, there's like a cowboy, there's a US astronaut from like the space race. I think there's a couple other people. and you help. Then you guys fight back to take the ship. But really, the only reason the Zetans are even in the game is because of the little gun in his hand is like the best energy weapon in the game. And like, if you get it, and in some games you can only get it if you make one right choice before the game even starts. Yeah, it's one of the strongest weapons in the game. That's really it.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. With the Enclave. Now in Fallout 76, when I encountered them, you encounter this artificial intelligence who is like the culmination personality of like the very top elite. They downloaded their personalities into a computer, and they want you to this consciousness wants you to help it reconfigure all like the communication network on the surface so that it can spread across the entire country. And so you have to set up these antennas for it. It sends you on missions. And basically, it's camped out underneath like a big golf course resort, basically called the White Spring. And it's them and a bunch of robots are running the White Spring. And they kicked out any humans that were trying to take refuge there. And it's all automated, completely automated. And this consciousness wants you to help it get into the weapons locker. Basically, that's a part of the base that the last general to die actually locks up the weapons and basically tells Enclave it can't access it. Only a human general can. So you have to ascend to the rank of general to basically get into it. And so you do, as long as you do work for the Enclave, it lets you in there. But there are no humans at that point in it. But you also find other humans that are like basically Men in Black, Secret Service, and everything in other bases that basically in Vault 79, you find these Secret Service agents that were underneath that are basically guarding and hoarding the world's gold supply. Now, the one thing that surprisingly was wiped from my head when I should have explained it in the beginning was the thing about the vaults themselves. And I was trying to explain that, and it kept being pulled from my head in the very beginning. But I've actually encountered this from not only different ghosts that have actually come to tell me their different stories, but also other lifetime memories as well. This goes into some experiments that the Nazis themselves were actually running not only here, but also on Mars and other experimental platforms. And also planets as well. What happened was, like what you said, some of the people went into the vaults and they would have just told the world ended, but it really actually did in the case of the games. What happened that is very similar to some of these different outposts and different experimental townships that the Nazis actually were feeding supplies to. And what they were doing was trying to convince a group of people that they abducted that the world had ended and that they had this particular township were like the last of the human race. Well, there were dozens of these different townships. It's the same as the vaults, but they were outside, essentially. And they're like castles, essentially, or like if you saw any of the Mad Max movies where they just had like different settlements and stuff like that. It was essentially like that. And they'd seal them in there, and they'd make sure that there could be like another generation or two of people that were born in there. So the people that would eventually come out of there would be completely obedient to the Nazis and try to rebuild the Aryan race. Well, there was this set of ghosts that actually came to me. And what had happened was they said that the Nazis had lied to them and said that they were in a compound and they were told that the world had completely ended. There was nothing living but themselves, even though there was another compound not maybe 10 miles away from that one, just out of sight on the other side of like a mountain range or something like that. It wasn't that far away, of 10, 15, 20 miles, something like that. And they said that one person in there basically kept saying, well, something doesn't feel right. I would think we're being lied to, and managed to open the front door, managed to get outside, and were gunned down by Nazis. And then the Nazis figured, okay, the experiment failed. We got to now go in and gun down everybody. And they basically wiped it out and terminated that particular version of the experiment. Well, there was a group of hikers. This is real history that corroborates this. There was a couple of hikers going through a mountain range, and I believe it was Russia. And don't quote me on that one. I believe it was Russia. and they actually found this strange-looking compound up in the mountains. And they're like, "What the hell is this?" And they approach us, and they see a couple of people wandering out of emaciated-looking people wandering out of this structure, younger people, and these people ran up to these hikers and hugged them and said, "Oh my God, there's people." And they're like, we thought the world had ended, and they're like, "No, everything's pretty much fine. What are you talking about?" And what had happened is they ran out of supplies because the Nazis weren't there to supply them with food and stuff anymore. They hadn't actually grown anything in there or done anything like that. They were constantly given supplies from the outside, from the Nazis. And when the Nazis weren't there anymore to give them anything, they started to starve. And there were very few of them in there. But they told the story that the generation prior to them were brought there under the guise of the world had ended. And it's very similar to the Vault-Tec scenario with the different experiments with the different communities. They had a different set of experiments where they did put, say, all women in one, all men in another one, different scenarios, the same identical thing with the vaults. So I find that very interesting. They put that in there, but also the fact that also they have the Enclave being around in some form or another. That's actually true. Because the Cabal, I've also been told that in years to come, people will still be finding pockets of Cabal in different mountains and in different base fragments and stuff like that for several years to come, where we're going to have to clean out different factions of them for at least a few decades to come. So I actually find that quite interesting that that's come up.
Yeah, actually, the Cabal, those men in black guys that you see in Fallout 76 are members of the Cabal, of the Enclave, as well as the Vault-Tec Corporation only answered to one group, and it was the Enclave. Mm-hmm. And after Vault-Tec Corporation blew up with the rest of the bombs, the Enclave took over information for them. They used the Vault-Tec computers and stuff to figure out where there was still good human genes. And some they offered membership to, some they wiped out. And the Enclave, that's what happened with them. And others they just left alone because they didn't see them as useful. But the Enclave, yeah, they're one of the most crazy factions because they're as soon as you start learning about the Cabal, you can instantly make that connection. They're the same people. And that intelligence that's doing stuff for the Enclave, they actually have an intelligence in Fallout 3, very similar. But that intelligence is a propaganda fake U.S. president. It's an intelligence called, I think, John Henry Eaton or something like that. Mm-hmm. And he's claiming to be the rightfully elected Enclave-backed United States president. And it's basically trying to make everyone work for the Enclave and work towards this water, eliminate everyone that's not Enclave goal. Mm-hmm. And you learn that it's an AI, and a lot of even lower ranking Enclave people don't know that. Only the Enclave general knows it's an AI. Yeah.
With that, that's actually very interesting. In Fallout 76, it's called Modus. It's just this set of this giant computer core that has a set of consciousnesses in it. They must refine it later on down the road, but that's what it's called later on, and it's kind of creepy actually. It kind of has the face kind of has almost like this gray appearance in it and everything. It's really kind of creepy. Ran into that, and it's a fully functional AI with a full set of emotions and all this other stuff, and it's very twisted. It basically congratulates the military on making conducting experiments and all this other stuff, and it's really it has the attitude of how the elite would actually have. So I find that very interesting.
Yep, and that's kind of all I've got for this episode because Fallout, like we did with the Elder Scrolls, kind of an introductory episode, and we'll keep going on depending on how people like this one. So
yeah, we can keep going on making different episodes on the creatures and on the different factions themselves and refine the points on different things. So yeah, that I find that very interesting. Well, what I also find interesting is the the Galactic group that is actually paying us a visit this time. I've dealt with them a few times, and I see them actually aiding people in society. They're a group called the Mosin. They actually are a human-like military group that has infiltrated different so not different societies, but well, yeah, you can say that some of them are basically they infiltrated some of the Martian Germans. Some of them are part of the English culture. Some of them are part of the Earth German culture, and some of them are American too. So that I find that really interesting. Some of them are worker class, where they where they go around like say if you had an exterminator guy going exterminating rodents or bugs out of your house or something like that. Some of them are like that. They carry these like strange flamethrower like things around, and they can actually and they have these skin tight suits on, and they go around and get rid of like say on your property, if you have like these spiders I've been talking about, where they're in a different frequency, they can come in and just flamethrow a bunch of them and get them away from your property. Or if you have a nano infestation or something like that, they can come in with a cleanup crew and actually help out. Then there's a soldier class of them that will help defend people. They're not really saviors. They're just like, if we got into major crap here, they'd come in and actually help us. They're from a constellation called Cassiopeia. And there's a few major groups out there. There's the Enosanok, that's a trading group that's out there. They're very German, Russian-like looking group. They have a strange set of eyes too. The Mosin, of course, they have, and then there are two type groups. And then you have the Saranans. That's another group. You haven't never heard me talk about them, but other insiders said there's a group. There's a planet there called Sarana that actually has a group of human-looking people there. But their eyes are slightly different. If you've ever seen a goat's eyes, how they have that strange look to them, just reflect
like pupil, like the line pupil.
Yeah, the line pupil, but kind of refine it down a little bit with like more of like a glittery look to it, and that's like how the Mosin's eyes look. They look like us, but their eyes are a dead giveaway. They're not from here, so they're related to us, but by cousinship. But they are not. They're not from here. They're from that constellation. But another thing is, I've seen the bad guy military group in a different frequency come through the different neighborhoods, trying to keep people in a lower vibration. They fire this strange weapon at people that looks kind of like a satellite dish, kind of on the front, and they can toggle a little switch on the back to toggle where if they want to be able to manipulate your genes or manipulate your brain waves in some way, they can toggle this. Well, the Mosin have been kind of driving these guys off a little bit, where they can help. And just recently in somebody's session, I came across a Mosin work group that was actually here in Arizona that were trying to purge this apartment building of nano infestations and stuff like that had been rained down in chemtrails. And there were two men, and there was their woman foreman, or if you can call her a foreman, that's about the closest, or a captain or something like that, or work crew. And she was Saranan, and then I believe the two men one was either Mosin and the other one's Enosanok, or they were both Mosin. I wasn't quite sure, but you would recognize Enosanok and Mosin because some of them would have English accents, German or Russian type of thing. And I believe the reason their eyes are the way they are is because of their sun. I think it had something to do with the way they evolved in their sun, by their sun. But the one Mosin person that is actually around today, or Saranan, excuse me. No, sorry. You were traveling with Mosin soldiers and Mosin work people, so I just assumed you were Mosin. You're Saranan. Okay, let me see. Yes, Isaac, I'm aware they all look alike. Thank you. All right. All right. I knew he couldn't stay out of this. Okay, let me see. Okay. Yes, I know. Yeah, her name is, did you say your name was Elaine? Not Elaine, but with an A at the beginning of it. It's Elaine. And her last name is Day, D-A-E. It's Elaine Day. And I encountered her, a couple days ago in someone's session, actually. So from here, local. I asked her if she wanted to speak on a show at some point, and she hadn't decided then, but I guess now is the time. But to give a slight background, when before I knew the Mosin existed, I was seeing in that alternate timeline of things happening in 2023 here in Arizona. I was seeing these soldiers that looked like they had World War One get up, like with the old helmets, the old brimmed helmets and everything. They had World War One style uniforms and older weaponry, fighting a really high tech, like American military type of situation. And I could see two of them laying on the floor of our living room, kind of hiding from a tank that was passing through the neighborhood. And they were helping to defend the regular Joes, basically, from this militant group. And that's where I first encountered them. I didn't know who they were at the time. I just knew that they were alien. Yes, I know we're cousins. I understand. I know the word alien to them is more derogatory. They don't like, some of these groups don't like the word alien. It feels like it's a slur in some way to some of them. So, or extraterrestrial, they don't mind that because it just means terrestrial somewhere else. So,
yeah, I get that. No, I think it's funny that we call each other people from not even this country aliens technically. And so they must really get annoyed about that too.
Yeah, some of these groups don't really like it. I think some of them are kind of picky and they prefer extraterrestrial. Even though the word alien, I don't use it as derogatory. She was kind of Elaine was kind of irked at the use of the word alien. So we might run into that in the future when we have some of these groups around. Oh, it's an alien. They might get irked by that. So. Okay, Elaine, you wanted to come through? Okay, can you do the go through the crystal here, please? I know there's been some disruptions today. Is it because of the Mosin and Saranan presence? Kind of. Okay, they were just doing crap anyway, and you're here to help out. Yeah, because there was some other elementals that said it was their job to defend the neighborhood, and they were just kind of standing around picking their nose, and it just that they weren't actually doing anything. And I got kind of mad at them before the show because some crap was going down before the show. So, yeah, she basically said their lion sacked of shit. Basically, is what she just said. So it's like, thank you. No blame is on you guys. Yeah, okay, thank you. Oh, there's about 4 or 5 of you here. Actually, I was looking over that way. Okay. And they're all in these jumpsuit, think of like almost like the whole 7 of 9 cat suit type of deal, but only like purple color, kind of a light purple-ish color, and a little bit of blue in there. And that's what they
very similar to the Vault jumpsuits.
Yeah, very, very similar to the Vault-Tec jumpsuits, extremely similar. Those were closer to like some of the military jumpsuits, but the alien one, extraterrestrial ones are actually more skin form type ones. And some of the Pleiadian groups have these too. And some of the Eben groups too have these, and different benevolent gray groups have these as well. So yeah. Yes, I know she's doing this. Okay, so she's doing this because it's more of a joke, but she's sitting there doing that. So it's like, and Isaac's over here doing this. So it's like he's on my left, she's over here. So it's like, okay, all right, okay, yes, Elaine. So you want to go through the crystal? What are you waiting for? Oh, yes, you may go through the crystal. Yes. All right. Yes. Thank you. This is Elaine Day of the Saranan, or the Sarana. We're from the planet Sarana in the Cassiopean star system, along with our brothers, the Mosin and Eden Sanak. The reason we have come through on this particular show is because partly why we are here is to prevent and continue to help prevent the stapling of the very timeline in which you are speaking of, either in the over automation process that you see in the Fallout games, or the Mad Max-like scenario that you've seen within the game's lore. In this, granted, we are not the saviors of humanity, but we stand with you. Think of us as more, you would say, white hat military or white hat workers in that particular way. We go in and do cleanup with some of these different alien groups, try to experiment with, let's just say. If there is, say, an overrunning, let's just say, of Orion Greys or some other alien faction that is overstepping their bounds in some fashion or have been denied access in some way and they continue, we will on occasion step in, but there are not a lot of us, let's just say, in the worker class that can actually come in and clean up on a regular and constant basis, but we do attempt to do so. We actually have stations all over your United States, Europe, and even parts of China. It is actually quite interesting that the game series is about communist China because you are actually in the throes, let's just say, of your false flag that you know of as your COVID-19, even though there is a reality to it. There are many myths that are being spoken about with the involvement of China, even though they did have a hand, even though they do have a hand in a lot of, as you would say, shenanigans, let's just say. There are cabal and corporate hands in the background and military hands in the background that are playing both sides and attempting to create a new boogeyman in your culture, let's just say. However, the fact that this has been placed in an alternate timeline and the fact that we ourselves also showed him here, the alternate timeline, if it were to play out, that we would actually be around to actually assist. We actually generated these particular images from the temporal soup, let's just say, to actually show several people. But some people misinterpreted these images, either put them in as fiction, like you did in the games, not yourself, but the ones that created this, that are more than likely will be listening to this. And also, in some fashion, saw them as solid truth. Now, other channelings have been placed into that game series, just like within your Elder Scrolls series, because some, as you would call white hats, actually saw the calculations and actually saw what they thought the writing on the wall was, and inserted different survival methodologies within the games, as he has said, to actually ensure that enough people survive what they believe would actually be hitting very soon. But the idea is to also prevent this and see it as an alternate, and the positive timeline is the one that you are actually standing on currently and grounded to. This is also why we are here to help this particular cleanup crew. We also wish to have communications with your people, but we've also seen where we've had to step in cases of extreme abuse and extreme misuse of power. Now, we cannot come completely out in the open, you see, but in this particular instance, we can at least communicate as to what we are doing, why we're here, and to the disclosure that is within these games. So we are at the moment of questions.
When I've heard of your enforcer guys with heavy weapons, are they basically power armored warriors?
Yes, you can actually say that. Some of our soldiers do have different power armors. This is exactly like depicted in the game, but more refined. Those had more of a nostalgic look to them. We have more of a refined look. Sometimes our armors are, as you would say, invisible to your eye because they are out of phase with the surrounding environment. This can also help cloak some of our soldiers as well, even though we are in a different frequency. Though we also have larger power armors that are more mech-like, just like the ones that you see, that actually have not necessarily a steel exterior, but they have different metals from our home world that are different steel and iron derivatives that are actually much stronger than the metals that you currently possess. They are basically a walking tank, and they could literally walk through a wall and bust through a wall. This particular type of set of armor that you saw within this is very, very close to that description.
And am I right in guessing that much of yourself and the Mosen's home life look is almost our 1950s culture look?
Yes, there are segments of the population on the Mosen homeworld that are like this. Now on Serana, it is very similar to your, say, your current city life, but with some as you would call futuristic refinements to it. But on Mosen, yes, they are within, in between the cultures of the 1930s and 50s.
Interesting. And would you say that your people have influenced the developers of the Fallout franchise in a way as to write it in a way that we should never allow an atrocity like this to happen, as it has been written that way, but it in a way where the gameplay is fun to keep people engaged, but the overarching story is this is not the future that we want to pass down?
Exactly. This is exactly. It was more of a warning, even though, as I've said, some of your white hat military are convinced that that type of situation is soon to come. So they implemented different survival simulations and techniques within those games. However, the overall message is prevention of this timeline, not actual implementation of this timeline.
And as a whole, what do you and your people see this game series as in a way that isn't just a cautionary tale?
It also, yes, it does. It teach certain survival methods to people that are actually stuck at home or cannot actually get out in the field. Yes, but the overall gist, as I've said, of the video game is prevention. But also another good point is the fun of connecting to other people in situations like this. Is it also a preparedness type of scenario? Yes, but is it also a connecting type of scenario where you can actually show and have fun building different structures, entering into different scenarios, and actually know teamwork and actual companionship and friendship? Yes, this is also another reason for this particular type of methodology. But the overall, along with that, is the prevention of the timeline I mentioned.
And now, differing away directly from the games, but something that's connected to them, I have a very large feeling that your people, as well as some of the other groups that you work very closely with, have heavily influenced the Fallout modding community, which is basically people that make their own additions to the games. And it's very large if you're into Fallout, like on PC. It's a very large community, and it's even to a lesser extent reached consoles. And it's all not in 76, but all the 4 primarily. And I have a feeling that your people have influenced modders to create mods that sort of push this view that your people have of Fallout itself.
Yes, the creation of mods in that way. Yes, there is what you would say as an agenda there. We actually do give information to the mods or to the modders, because the people that run the companies aren't always receptive to all ideas. They wish to add in what sometimes the cabal wishes to add in there, and the military and corporations wish to add in there. So going to the individual modders and the people that wish to stay in more of a creative mode, they are actually more receptive to this message.
All right. Any final messages from you and your people about the Fallout franchise, or just in general?
This is actually fascinating that this has actually come to pass. The interference that has happened with both of you today is so you would not compare these particular details and put them all in a unified form. Also, the fact that the Mosen and Seranan people are present to actually speak about these particular games and these particular facts and figures. This is an unfortunate side effect of our presence, so apologies there. The particular forces did not want us present. As for any more comments on the game series, there's actually far more information in the individual games and within the individual plots that you'll eventually cover that actually do involve our people, as well as involve different specific types of experimental disclosure, AI, and also temporal and timeline disclosures, as well as some brief alien disclosures in there, that it's one of those blink and you miss it type of things. So we are honored to be a part of this. Thank you for having us on today.
Awesome. Thank you for coming.
Oh yeah, yeah. I could even feel on her end and her workers' end that they're being badgered a little bit too. I can actually feel they're being pushed. Like I could feel Waves pushing them. She's actually quite irritated at that. Doesn't like that at all.
I had a feeling that she didn't have long.
Yeah, that's why we were getting harassed before the show, because they knew that the Mosin and Saranans were actually around, and these and also some of the supposed neighborhood watch guys were not around, and she's actually doing this to me, saying I shouldn't have actually believed that little bit like that, basically saying no, they don't actually do that. And the real ones were driven out several weeks ago, is what you're telling me? Yeah. All right. No, yes, Isaac. Yeah, shut up. And he's like basically he's doing the same thing. So it's like he always comes in through the closet. I don't get what the hell the closet is.
Coming out of the closet. It's always a good time for Isaac.
Yeah, and yeah, the two Mosin workers that are here is saying he has yet to ever come out of the closet. Okay, yeah, right. So they're poking fun at him now. But it's always weird when two groups are around. They're always like on opposite ends of the room, looking at each other, like they're staring across the void at each other, and it's like I find that hilarious. I don't. There is kind of a tension there. I don't. I think it's more with her and Isaac. I just don't think they care for each other. That's the thing. I don't get it. But there are some groups like that. It's like with us. You just can't always explain why people don't always like each other. I'm thinking there's some kind of history here that they're not saying. But it's like with Isaac, there's probably a ton of history that he's done something.
Yeah, he seems to rile a lot of the other good guys up. So
we riles them up, or he makes fun of them, or they just ignore him. So it's just like, yeah, I find it funny, the interaction between all of them. So yeah, I actually enjoyed that this show as well. It's like the first Elder Scrolls show. You just got to get a mishmash of some of the history, and then we'll bring
just to give the world background, and then you'll get into more.
Yeah, I find this interesting. So I think we can end it here. So thank you everybody for watching this episode of Lifting Disclosure in the Media. This would be the Fallout game series. So thank you everybody.
Bye-bye. Peace out.
All right, everybody. I said during the Fallout show me and Ryan did that I would show you a little bit about the game here, and just some spots of interest. May include another video about one of the secret entrances that actually is on here. I may do it on this one. I'll start with, I know the music is rather loud, sorry about that. I'll start with this area here, this White Spring Resort, White Spring Bunker. This is a golf resort, typical Cabal, resort. And there is an underground bunker right next to it. I will go straight here and show you this particular location, and how some of these underground facilities are. Went through a horrendously long update today. I would have been recording this earlier, but sometimes this internet can be pretty slow at times, so bear with it a moment. They go through these load screens as you're going from area to area. Right. Now This is around to the side of that resort. You can see there's all this stuff outside. This was, of course, after we talked about the nuclear bombs falling. All the government people went to some of their underground bunkers. This is one of them. All right. This is on the way to what Ryan and I were talking about, called the Enclave. And as you remember me saying in the show, this is an artificial intelligence that was created by the elite, basically with their consciousnesses, all rolled into one large AI. And this entire facility is run by robots. You can see here. I'm going to find an Enclave computer and I will show you. We're going to remember where to go here. Alright. It's been several months since I played this, so here's the AI mainframe right here. Some of them are this big, folks. Big quantum computing core. In bases, have seen ones this large. They're usually more cylindrical, but this one has more of a square shape. But this is the original terminal.
The damage done to this facility by its earlier residents was extensive. We are still trying to put things back together. Please, make yourself at home. This place has all you could ever want. At fair market value. General, you're finding your stay comfortable, we hope. We've taken great pains to return this place to what it once was.
All right, going down in here. It just basically returned it to this more opulent, look. And there is a passage to that White Spring Resort through here, but I just wanted to show you that the bases, even though this isn't an older style, bases are under common things, like towns, houses, neighborhoods. Access points are in houses. And you see how deep this whole thing goes, even further down. And that's accurate, folks. This goes all the way into its military war room, down in here, all the way into its command center. And of course it's in that 50s style. Alright. I'll see if I can find the passage into the resort. Let's see. Okay. This is the war room. Alright, now I will find my way to the resort and show you that. If this takes too long, I'll just edit it. Okay, this is a bigger command center. All this, anything you'd expect from a base. I know I'm moving kind of quick here.
The board above displays any currently available operations we could use help with. Head topside if you wish to participate.
Now. So you can see, even bigger, warehouse size area. Okay, here is the entrance to the White Spring Resort. Secret entrance going over here. Alright. Sometimes it does that glitch. And this goes, this is pretty much the epitome of basically opulent. During a disaster, all the robots, and there's a random dead one just there, began to repair this facility, kicking out all the human occupants. And it was nothing but that AI that was doing this. So I'll go through here.
Please refrain from that. Losing assault.
Nobody here, but they felt compelled to repair this. I like how there's just random dead robots just laying around. You never see that when I'm playing this.
Please see yourself. A wager.
This place is humongous. There are several floors of this place. Typical Cabal tastes. Another dead robot. Yeah, never see any of that, folks, so that's kind of funny. Alright. I will find a way downstairs. I'll show you more of this place. It's been at least 4 months since I've played this, and you can get lost in these buildings. Alright. Alright. Find the main set of rooms here. Let me get back to them.
Today, security status is red. Please take appropriate precautions.
You can see this place is enormous. See, funny glitches like that happen with all the dead robots. Didn't expect that to actually happen. But I'm looking for the shops here, so that you can see all of that. This place is enormous, so. As you can see, they're all maintaining the facility even long after all people are gone. Here we are. They even have shops. I'll go outside in a second. It's on a golf course as well. This resort is. Typical Cabal, place where they make deals with one another. It is the golf course. It might as well be the symbol, one of the symbols of the Cabal is golf club, golf bag. I have to sneak while I'm here because there are bad guys around, but this is the resort. Past the resort lines there, over in there and everything, there's a lot of bad guys. Over in here, a lot of bad guys. But you get the idea there with the base being under places such as this. There is even was a secret entrance to a Chinese base further off in this resort. I don't know where the opening is, but I'll take you to a different area. Yeah, the base opening was somewhere it was somewhere over in here. I will take you further up north here to here. This is a cabin. Vault 79. Yes, you have to pay to fast travel in this with currency within the game, which I find really stupid. Like, the game isn't hard enough and they have to add that. Alright. Instead of adding in another video I did about this months ago, I'll just show this to you now. This is a shed, as you saw here, out in the middle of nowhere. Typical shed. And there is an elevator. This is how it looks when it's closed. And this goes down to a base called Vault 79, where I said in the video the world's gold supply was kept by more Cabal forces. You'll see it here.
Don't mind the others. People's skills aren't their strong suit.
Agents live by rules. Cole seems to have forgotten that. They don't call him Shrek for nothing.
So you can see they're all typical suits. This guy is the leader of the whole thing.
I'm gonna hold your hand up the sign. I'm not your mom.
I'll show you, see? Things of this nature are underground, beneath all of our feet. In towns, under rest stops, road stops, there's another area that you go into Vault 79. Apparently my character is starving. So, this is another stupid thing they added to this game set, is actual starving and dying of thirst. Not smart. Yes, that's supposed to be a facsimile of Joanna, just so everybody knows. That's the character I'm playing as. The last stop we'll make is the house I built. Alright. Outside here. Sorry, I used to playing Elder Scrolls here. Alright. The other stop here, I'm not going to go here because there's a ton of enemies around it. Just know this is another entrance. This was there's a rest stop over here. This is some kind of Curiosities house that was right here in this area. That there's another entrance to Vault 79 that you had to go all the way up to this point. And just under normal things. There's even a bunker over here, somebody's bunker over here. Even though it's not connected to this, it's still, you get the idea. So, alright. I believe I'm done with that, and now I will go to the house. And that's that stop I just told you about. That's a picture of it I took. It was a rest stop. That happens to be the exact place in the photograph there. Didn't want to go there because I didn't want to have to get into a fight with enemies while I'm trying to show you stuff. Right. Here, this thing is like a fortress. I have guns on the outside here. Workshop. This is that's the robot that usually runs not runs a house, but collects supplies. Backyard. Fireplace, porch. Inside house.
So glad you're here.
This is one of the house companions from another quest. She's supposed to be an astronaut. I'll show you. Let's see if I can find it here. I have my character here. If I can get a 3D representation here. Oh, oops. Let me see. I gotta put an outfit on this person. So.
Strange. Time. Stranger isn't a stranger anymore.
I gotta find an outfit to put on. I'm not sure why. From the last time. She's running around naked. So. Okay. Alright. Alright. Apparently, something has been removed from the game that I had in here previously that was interesting. But, at any rate, I will show people more of the property once I get back to the top here. Alright. This is the porch. That's our room in there. bedroom, toasters. Yes, I made this enormously large house that the robot won't shut the doors. But actually, I'll just go out here and I'll show you. See, I had to wire all the wiring all around the house over here to this farm and these water tanks that are over here on the outside. Even have stairs going around this way over on the hillside here. This is out in the middle of nowhere.
I never imagined that I would share a home.
Normally I had armor to go with this of this particular throne, but apparently an update has taken it.
Sometimes I wonder if we did the right thing. Then I realize I'm not wincing in pain and feel completely at home.
So you can see you can customize. Oh, here they are. This is the outfit that disappeared from my own. Alright, now, where is she at? Here we are. Barbarian outfit. And there we go. Now that reappeared. It just disappeared on me there for a moment. Okay. Now, you guys might think that doing all this kind of stuff is irrelevant and why is he showing this? Well, sometimes you need to do things that seem to make no sense to be able to gain what does. And to me, this is fun. I mean, I don't do it all the time. I actually do work on things. But I also do this when I have a chance. This is my large complex here that I've created, which took a very long time. And some people might think I have too much free time on my hands. No, I don't. But I did manage to get this made. So, before I go rambling even further, if people wish to visit this house, you play on console, I'm on Xbox One. I go under the handle Christopher S.J. and I'm up in this part of the map, usually, up in the far upper left corner of the map, right here, when I'm actually online on this game. You'll see my camp here. Some other people, because of me, have actually tried to use this and started to use this area too. But this is where I'm encamped. If I'm playing, you're welcome to walk through my house. Just don't destroy it. And this is again the companion. And yes, for everybody watching, I do play as a female character. I've had people rag on me about that. I do in all video games I play as a female character. Always have. Friends of mine have. And I know it's weird, but that's what I do. So, thank you everybody for watching this. In future Fallout videos, I may show a little more in detail about some of the other stuff that's in this game, but this was just for the hell of it at the end of the first of the Fallout series. So, thank you everybody for watching. Bye-bye now.